What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. Today what we're going to be looking at is a Mohamed Salah replacement, and probably an unorthodox one, as we're going to take a look at Yankuba Minteh. But before we get into all of that, please do make sure to like and subscribe. Any and all engagement really helps. It just so helps the YouTube algorithm, so any and all engagement you can give me really helps. The page has been growing astronomically since I started posting more long form videos here, nearly at 100 subscribers already, so I really appreciate that. So without further ado, let's get into the video itself. So even when you say the statement Liverpool replacing Mohamed Salah, for nearly a decade now at this point, it's been a sentence that you never thought you would hear uttered by anybody at all. It seemed like the man was going to retire here. He was never going to leave. He was going to be eternal, so to speak. But how do you go about doing it? Because Father Time is undefeated. It comes for everybody. Whether you want it or not, Father Time will be there at the end of the road to tell you your time is up. And unfortunately, last season, that's what was told to Mohamed Salah. Your time is up. We're not continuing your contract. We're buying you out of your contract, or whether it was a mutual cessation of the contract is a completely different scenario. I digress. But you simply don't replace one of the best wingers to have ever laced their boots, and especially that the Premier League has ever seen. You can't replace the goals that he produces in one singular player, in my opinion anyway. But how do you go about doing it? Well, you do it by committee, and anybody that has ever watched the movie Moneyball, this is probably the perfect example of it. The Oakland Athletics lost 3 star players, and they boiled it down to their on average on base percentage across all 3 players, and they said we basically need to sign a bunch of guys on the cheap that round up and average to that on base percentage. That is why you hear the terminology used when referring to Liverpool's transfers as he gets on base. That's basically it. If you can get into dangerous positions and you can create dangerous positions, you are a valuable asset to the team. And especially now that Liverpool are transitioning away from what we had previously, which was we're going to have our wingers be the main focal point of our attack, and the striker is going to be the platformer, shall we say. Now it's completely different. It's the opposite. Gone are the days of Bobby Firmino facilitating and pressing like a monster in the middle while also getting his own end product, and both Salah and Mane just ripping teams apart. Now we're at the point where the wingers are now going to have to complement the striker and the 10. And while Arne Slot got absolute pelters for saying, oh, why isn't Isak performing like he did at Newcastle, and when he said we don't have a Jacob Ramsey, he was 100% right. But the problem is he just got misunderstood. Liverpool need wingers that have the ability to put in the hard graft, press well, get in behind with pace, and put the ball into the box for the likes of Alexander Isak. So you need to replace the goals. For Mohamed Salah, you need to replace the goals, you need to replace the creativity, and you need to replace the fear factor that goes into defenders. Now, can you do that in one player? In my opinion, no. The only player that probably does that is Michael Olise, and nobody's touching him. He's at Bayern for at least another couple of years until he decides, I want to go. And if he's happy at Bayern, you're not uprooting him. No amount of money is going to do it. Or you take Avenue 2. You replace the role differently. Liverpool don't need another Salah. We need somebody who can evolve the position at winger under Andoni Iraola to platform Ekitike, Wirtz and Alexander Isak going forward. That's what we need to do. We need to focus on these. And Brighton's Yankuba Minteh personifies that perfectly. He's still only 21 years old. He's already one of the most dangerous ball carriers in the Premier League. He's one of the most elite crossers in Europe from wide areas, be it left wing or right wing. He's a relentless presser. He's explosively athletic. And perhaps the most important part of all of it, he's 21 and he has so much room to grow. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the numbers, the underlying data, the strengths, the weaknesses, his tactical role, and finally we'll answer the question, can Yankuba Minteh be the right player to replace Mohamed Salah at Liverpool? So let's begin. Yankuba Minteh's rise has been anything but ordinary. Born in Gambia, his talent was so obvious from a young age, quickly attracting European interest. He moved through Odense in Denmark before Newcastle United got his signature. And funnily enough, he never really played a competitive match for Newcastle despite being employed there. He actually went on loan for a season to Feyenoord and played under, funnily, Arne Slot, Liverpool's previous manager. That year changed everything. Under Arne Slot at Feyenoord, he learned positional discipline, counter-pressing, when to attack space, how to combine rather than just simply dribble at a player. He arrived an athlete and he left as a footballer. When Newcastle needed some PSR help, he was then sold to Brighton, who eventually got him, placed him at right wing and sometimes at left wing, and they signed him believing they'd acquired one of Europe's next breakout attackers. So, looking at his first Premier League campaign, it is so easy to see why. And one mistake that people make when describing Minteh is calling him a traditional winger. He isn't. And he's not really an inside forward either, similar to the Salah mould. He's kind of a bit of a tweener, as in he's somewhere in between the two of them. So imagine, if you will, combining the vertical explosiveness that Jeremy Doku can provide to a squad with some of the sheer directness that Moussa Diaby provides, and some of Luis Diaz's relentless work ethic and work rate off the ball. Minteh wants to receive the ball early, attack defenders immediately, force defenders to either retreat or commit and get past them, create chaos. His greatest weapon isn't step-overs and trickery and feints and body movement. It's just sheer brute acceleration. And once he gets moving, there's very few players that can catch him. And the numbers back that up immensely. You can see it here. Creation via carries and crossing is in the 95th and 97th percentile respectively. His dribbling ability is in the 94th percentile. His progression via carries is in the 88th percentile. They are elite numbers. There are so few players better than him at getting the ball into dangerous areas with the ball at his feet. And that is something that Liverpool have been crying out for, to unlock low blocks and unlock transition and get out quicker in transition all over the last 12 months. So let's take a look at some of the other numbers on a deeper level. So let's take a look at his progressive actions and how he gets the ball up the pitch and how he is most threatening. So look where Minteh finds himself. Right below, ironically, Liverpool's first signing of this summer that they've made so far in Victor Munoz, and above the likes of Luis Diaz, Bukayo Saka, Desiree Doué, Keenan Yildiz, Bradley Barcola, Antoine Semenyo, Florian Wirtz, Mo Salah, Cody Gakpo. You can see all of the players that are there. Now, he's producing close to 10 progressive actions per 90, while almost more than one productive dribble per match. That places him alongside those players that I mentioned, and people have been screaming out for the relentless work ethic of Luis Diaz, while also needing somebody that's direct 1v1 and likes to get to the byline. Well, here's your Luis Diaz replacement. They are very similar in territorial progression, and that is really difficult to teach. So when it comes to how Yankuba Minteh progresses the ball, it is predominantly with the ball at his feet and getting the ball from wide areas into the box and into dangerous areas. So what I'm going to show you now is his most threatening action map along with his carrying map. So let's take a look at that now. So as I said, one image tells almost the whole story, his carry map, and you're currently looking at it. Nearly every progressive carry originates on the right touchline. Now, there are a smattering of them on the left touchline, but he is predominantly a left-footed right winger. but he has the versatility to be able to play both sides. You can see from this graph as well that a majority of them are very heavily favoured towards just outside the box or in the box, and obviously to the right hand side. Liverpool have relied on Salah for years from this position on the right hand side of the pitch. If you look in the bottom right hand corner, that's where they've relied on Salah for years. But unlike Salah, Yankuba Minteh starts much wider, and instead of cutting inside, he often explodes towards the byline, where he had such success doing it. As you can see, there's a plethora of dribbles there that are just direct up the pitch, vertical, and go straight towards the end line. So his carry map has over 120 carries total, which is nearly 5 progressive carries per 90. That is a simply outstanding level of success. And not only that, he has a success rate of about 50%. So he'll try 10 of them and get 5 successful. That is elite level production from a guy currently playing in Brighton. And now you move him to a much higher possession side where he's going to see his volume increase. If he can keep that percentage the same, that is absolutely ridiculous from Yankuba Minteh. The heat map of where his most threatening actions occur from tells a completely other story as well. Well, not so much a completely other story, it actually reinforces the initial story. Almost every dangerous action begins out wide before it pretty much all ends inside the penalty area. He's stretching defensive blocks before collapsing them. That's modern wing play. Not hugging the touchline, not simply cutting inside, but manipulating the defensive shape. Let's go back to his take-on map very quickly. He's attempted over 120 take-ons, which is a serious amount. He completed 65, he failed 56. At first glance, that success rate doesn't look extraordinary when you consider, oh well, every 1 in 2 he fails. But context really matters here. He isn't choosing safe, risk-free take-on attempts. He's attempting them in the most dangerous areas possible, around the penalty area, against organised defensive lines, against fullbacks with cover. These are incredibly difficult situations to overcome, and most importantly, many of his successful dribbles immediately created positive expected threat. He's not dribbling for highlights. He's not doing 100 step overs, trying to get the ball around a player, showing some flair, some quick knee feints and hip feints. He's just driving straight at defenders. He's dribbling with purpose, and that is exactly what Liverpool have been crying out for, and that is exactly how he is going to be able to help replace Mohamed Salah, by dribbling into space with intent and the creative ability to be able to make something of that successful dribble or successful carry. Perhaps one of the real biggest surprises is that he may be actually a better creator than a goal scorer. So we look at the percentages again, and the percentiles again should I say. Creation via carries, 95th percentile. Crossing, 97th percentile. Overall creativity, 83rd percentile. Those are seriously elite numbers. I think people are not factoring in how incredibly threatening that is to have that in a winger. Especially somebody that is in a side in Brighton that wouldn't average the same amount of possession as Liverpool would normally. It completely changes the demographic of Liverpool's attack and now makes it unbelievably threatening and gives you lightning pace on the outside for the likes of Florian Wirtz to play passes to, unlock defensive blocks and get in behind. One of the main reasons that Liverpool were really struggling against low blocks last season is a lack of 1v1 ability and a lack of pace on the wings. Because all of our passes to the wings were going to the feet of the defender the attacker, rather than in behind, which now causes the defence to be able to sink in deeper, sit in a more compact low block, and not have to worry about a threat in behind or stepping up to defend the dribble, because they know neither Mohamed Salah or Cody Gakpo is beating them off the dribble, and they can then double up on the central channels, meaning the striker and the 10 are completely zoned out of the game. Okay, let's now look at his shooting profile. Volume, chance quality, finishing, all below average. 29th percentile for volume, shot creation is at the 38th percentile, quality of chances in the 47th percentile, and quality of finishing in the 23rd percentile. Immediately this tells you that he isn't an elite scorer yet. However, he's an elite chance creator. I'm going to take a look now at the big chance involvement versus the expected threat created, and you're going to see something very surprising. So here we have our expected threat created versus big chance involvement. He is an elite chance creator. He's positioned comfortably among Europe's most dangerous creators. Take a look at Florian Wirtz, Bukayo Saka, Desiree Doué, Kvichka Kvaratskhelia, Kenan Yildiz, Antoine Semenyo. It looks as if he's very far away from Yan Diomande, but realistically, Yan Diomande is the main guy for RB Leipzig, whereas Yankuba Minteh is not. But if you take a look at the big chance involvement difference, it's less than half of a big chance per 90 that they are involved in. Very minimal change. Now, yes, there is more expected threat created from Yan Diomande, but that's because he's more of a scorer than a creator, and you get less credit on expected threat if you're the creator. One thing to note, however, if you take a look at where Bradley Barcola sits, you can see exactly why Liverpool are very interested in him. He is involved in more big chances than any other winger across all of Europe. And now you have somebody that has great expected threat, both in Florian Wirtz and Yankuba Minteh, and the 1v1 ability of Yankuba Minteh. You can really see the appeal of getting Bradley Barcola one side and Yankuba Minteh the other side, with Florian Wirtz being your orchestrator in the middle, pulling the strings, and everybody feeding the likes of Alexander Isak and Bradley Barcola. So no, he's not quite at where Michael Olise is, because oh my god, look where he sits. However, he has a serious ability to create danger consistently, and that trait alone is incredibly valuable, especially for a club like Liverpool that have been dying out for it the last 12 months. Now, if you haven't watched my Victor Munoz breakdown, please go and do so, because this rings true again for Victor Munoz. And this may actually be one of Yankuba Minteh's biggest selling points. Modern Liverpool wingers simply don't attack. And any modern winger that's in a high possession side and in a good side, be it PSG, Real Madrid, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City, Bayern Munich, the list goes on. You need to be able to press and defend. Your goalkeeper is your last defender, but first attacker. Your forwards, your wingers and your strikers are your last attacker, but your first defender. That is the best way to describe how a modern football team works back to front and front to back with their pressing and their progressive ability. He defends relentlessly, and you can see that here. Look at the amount of tackles he has made, the interceptions and the blocked passes, 56 and 44 respectively, all down the right hand side. He recovers possession across the entire right hand flank. The raw numbers are ridiculously impressive. 95 ball recoveries, 56 tackles, 44 interceptions or blocked passes. They are not luxury winger numbers. They are hard working winger numbers, especially under a manager or head coach like Andoni Iraola, who demands intensity. Yankuba Minteh already provides it. And it's something that I mentioned in the Victor Munoz video as well. You can teach positional discipline. You can teach decision making. You can coach that into a player. What you can't teach, especially from a defensive point of view, is effort, willingness and work ethic. And Yankuba Minteh has that in bunches. This graph is one that unbelievably jumped out at me, especially if you want to pair the likes of Bradley Barcola and Yankuba Minteh together. Look at where the two of them land on the tackles plus interceptions, with it being possession adjusted, and the defensive actions VAEP, which is your valuing actions based on estimated probability or expected probability. Now, you might say, oh, look, he's in the minuses for the VAEP. And yes, that's true, because he's further up the pitch when he does it, meaning they're technically less valuable than if they were deeper down the pitch. So, for example, if you win the ball back in your own defensive third, that's more valuable than you winning it back in the attacking third. It's just the way that it is. If you win the ball back in the box, that's more valuable than winning the ball back on a defensive side of things than winning the ball back in the opposition half. If you block a shot, if you block a pass that's about to go through for a shot on goal, that's more valuable than you blocking a pass getting out of the defensive third. It's just the way that it is. But look where he is. Over 2.5 tackles and interceptions per 90, while producing such good defensive VAEP comparative to others around him. Look where you see Vinicius Jr. Look where you see Keenan Yildiz, where you see Cody Gakpo, where you see Mohamed Salah. They're all down the very far end of not being very valuable with their defensive actions, but also not being high volume. Whereas Yankuba Minteh is winning it high up the pitch, which means it's technically less valuable on this graph, but is doing it at a very high volume. And again, if you have Bradley Barcola one side winning the ball back like he does in the defensive in the attacking and midfield third, and you have Yankuba Minteh winning it in the attacking and midfield third, your press has now jumped 10 levels to what it was last season. Now, we need to be fair. He is far from the finished product. Let's talk about a couple of his weaknesses. His biggest issue is final product. Despite his elite creativity, his shooting profile remains completely inconsistent. He still snatches at opportunities. His decision making in the final third can fluctuate. Sometimes he shoots when he should pass. Sometimes he dribbles once too often. His passing accuracy is another weakness. His profile shows just a 6th percentile passing accuracy. Again, it's alarming, but context matters. So I'm going to point out here that Brighton have never really had a striker like Alexander Isak or Hugo Ekitike. They've never had that level of a prolific striker. Rudder is okay, but can you name me an absolutely prolific striker that would be on Brighton's team over the last number of years that Minteh would have been able to benefit from? This is where the context matters. It's like, oh, well, he's not really performing that well with his passing. And I'm like, okay, but who does he have to pass it to? He's getting the ball into so many dangerous areas, both on the left and the right wing, but then there's nobody on the end of him. And you can play the best pass in the world, but if nobody can finish it, then your pass that you've put a serious amount of effort into all of a sudden just doesn't matter anymore. He's constantly attempting difficult, aggressive, progressive passes and actions. Risk naturally lowers the completion percentage. The question isn't whether he loses possession, it's whether the reward outweighs the risk. And when it comes to Yankuba Minteh, from what I've watched, it usually does. As in, the reward usually outweighs the risk. Now, the fascinating part of this is, in my entire time of watching him, does he replace Mohamed Salah? No, of course not. Not directly. Nobody does. But instead, he changes the dynamics. Liverpool's attack without Salah becomes less about one player producing 30 goals and more about creative, collective ability. Imagine this front three. Yankuba Minteh on the right. Florian Wirtz operating centrally. You then have Bradley Barcola on the left. And then you have Alexander Isak finishing the attacks. Minteh becomes the primary ball progressor. Florian Wirtz becomes the chief creator. The striker in Alexander Isak or Hugo Ekitike finishes those attacks. Bradley Barcola gets in behind, causes havoc, makes the defence have to shift, and now that creates more space for the other three around him. So rather than Minteh scoring 30 goals, Liverpool could just allow him to create chaos, just go nuts. And that's what he excels at. His familiarity with previously Arne Slot's counter-pressing system and his ability and willingness to defend the ball will suit Andoni Iraiola's high-pressing side very, very well. It's another huge advantage. He already understands so many complex pressing triggers, the positional rotations, the counter-pressing principles. His adaptation period would likely be much shorter than most alternatives. There's also something that Liverpool have increasingly valued: the athletic ceiling. Minteh is only 21. He is nowhere near his physical peak, and yet is already competing statistically with Europe's best wingers. If Liverpool believe they can improve his finishing, and all of the issues that he has are decision making. None of it is physical, none of it is technical, it's just decision making. You can coach decision making. You can't coach somebody willing to be able to defend at the way that he does and having the athletic profile in the way that Yankuba Minteh does. The upside and possibilities become endless and enormous. So, Minteh isn't Salah. He's never going to replace Mohamed Salah. You're very, very, very rarely going to find somebody outside of the man named Michael Olise that's going to replace Mohamed Salah. And trying to either replace or become Mohamed Salah is probably going to hold somebody like Yankuba Minteh back completely. He's something different. He is a devastating weapon in transition. He is an elite carrier. He's a creative winger that platforms your striker to a much better extent than somebody like Mohamed Salah would. And that sounds crazy for a man that is 12 months removed from winning the Playmaker Award in the Premier League. But if Mohamed Salah is in the team, he is hogging the ball away from the likes of Florian Wirtz, Alexander Isak, Hugo Ekitike, Bradley Barcola and Yankuba Minteh. You need to be able to spread the ball out more. So what you need is you need a player who thrives in open space but has the ability to unlock compact defences as well. All of the data points paint a very, very clear picture. He has elite progression. He has elite crossing. He has elite creativity through his carries. He has very, very strong defensive work for a winger. He is developing his final product. And for Brighton, he's already one of the most exciting young players in the Premier League. And for Liverpool, he represents an opportunity to perhaps become even more valuable. Not the next Salah, but maybe the next Yankuba Minteh, or the first Yankuba Minteh. And Liverpool are banking on his development. They're looking to evolve him after the Salah era, to evolve into this new era where we're platforming the central players rather than the winger players, and the winger players now need to platform those guys rather than the other way around. Gone are the days of Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah torturing defences while Bobby Firmino does all the hard graft in the middle. Now Florian Wirtz and Alexander Isak and Hugo Ekitike are going to torture defences while the wingers put in the hard graft on the defensive side of the ball and platform our striker and our 10 to be much better. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe. I really, really, really would appreciate it. Any and all engagement completely helps the channel, and I really enjoy making these videos. What do you think though? Do you think transitioning away to a new style of winger is the way forward to replace Mohamed Salah? Could it be Yankuba Minteh? Could it be somebody maybe like a Takefusa Kubo from Real Sociedad? Or should Andoni Iraola stick with what he's got in Cody Gakpo, Rio Ngamoa and Jeremy Frimpong? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.